evening. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. God has been so good and so gracious to me. I'm sure you've heard of my story throughout the years about all the events surrounding the birth of my son. But what I would like to do today is to tell you my story, how I was feeling, what I was thinking. You see, Joseph, he had great love for me. And that love was mutual. Our engagement had already been set when one day the angel Gabriel appeared to me. Oh, I was so frightened and confused. I mean, if an angel appeared to you and said, "Oh, you are highly favored of God, the Lord is with you," I mean, wouldn't you be a little frightened too? And then the angel continued and he said, "Don't be afraid, Mary. The Lord is going to bless you. You shall become pregnant. You'll deliver a little baby boy, and you are to call him Jesus." Oh, that seemed like an odd message to me at the time. So I said, "How is this possible? I'm still a virgin." He said, "The son that you will give birth to will be the Son of God. The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and he will be the Son of God. And now, what will happen is he will be called Great, the Son of the Most High God." Oh, I was a little confused, but it was such an odd message to me. Mind you, I wasn't doubting. I was just trying to understand. And then he went on to tell me the news about my cousin Elizabeth. He told me how she was pregnant. And then he said these resounding words. He said, "Nothing is impossible for God." Oh, part of me just wanted to run. Yet part of me knew that this was a test of my faith. So I didn't know quite what to say. So I said, "I will do whatever you ask. May what you said come true in my life." Now, many of you find that strange, I'm sure, because you see, that's one of the things that kind of bother me about life in your day. You see, you view the Lord's commands as a burden. You might even ask, "Didn't you worry? Didn't you think about the risks?" I say, why worry? What risk is there when you fully trust the Lord? To be chosen for me was the greatest honor. It was an honor to be accepted with humility and joy and as a special act of grace. You know, when God calls us, we should be glad he even calls us at all. Now, I'm kind of getting away from my story, you see, because one day I got all ready and I left to go visit my cousin Elizabeth. And you know what she said? As soon as she saw me, she said her baby leaped for joy in her womb. And then Elizabeth, being a woman much older than I was, spoke of me as the mother of her Lord. Oh, those words just flooded my heart. I, the mother of the Messiah. But the hardest times were still ahead of me. First, I had to tell Joseph. And, you know, Joseph, he was understandably upset. But, you know, he was a good and a godly man. And so when he heard from the Lord himself, he felt as I did, that it was a privilege to do the Lord's will. Yeah. Second, there was the pregnancy itself. I never realized how cruel people could be. It's very hard to be called a harlot. And I sure didn't like the gossip. But I'm sure glad I had Joseph with me. The time of Jesus' birth was hard. Oh, that trip to Bethlehem, that was a long trip. And it's not exactly every girl's dream to give birth to her child in a stable. Yes, that was hard. But then also, that night was also majestic. It's as if the world stood still. Oh, I tried to remember every detail as I kept thinking about what my child would become. One day we made our way to the temple, as was the law, and the prophet Simeon was there. And he looked at me and he said, "A sword will pierce your heart." Oh, I had a sinking feeling that my son's life was not going to be what I thought it would be. Oh, you see, I had visions of him being crowned king. I never realized that that crown would be made of thorns. Now, Joseph and I went on to have several more children, but none were like Jesus. I was so proud of my son. I watched as he and the disciples, they ministered to the crowds. Oh, and when he taught, people listened. Everywhere he went, illnesses were healed, hearts were changed. Oh, I could see that the people loved him so much. And he was always so busy. I didn't get to see him as much as I would have wanted to. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. But then he began to speak about being handed over to death. I really thought he was mistaken. Because you see, the angel had told me that he would become king and that his kingdom would never end. So it didn't make sense to me. I had no idea then that that kingdom was a spiritual kingdom. Have you ever had to watch your child die? I hope not. It's the most excruciating experience. Children are not supposed to die before their parents. I would have traded places with him in a moment if it meant sparing his life. The words of Simeon came back to me. A sword will pierce your heart. As I watched them torture and murder my son, that's exactly how it felt. He came to reach the people. He was God's messenger. And they crucified him. I know it's the only way to pay for my sinfulness and yours. I know this now, but at the time, confusion just flooded my soul. Some say the greatest day of my life must have been the day I gave birth to Jesus. Now, the greatest day of my life is when I saw my son for the first time after he was risen from the dead. Oh, indeed, nothing is impossible for God. Nothing. Oh, when I saw my son for the first time, we just hugged long and quiet. Neither one of us said a word. No words needed to be spoken. Oh, I could sense, though, I could feel it, that he felt the pain that I had suffered. But you know, it was all forgotten in that moment, that wonderful moment. Oh, and whenever I'm faced with an impossible situation, or an impossible task, or an impossible person, whenever I want to give up, I just remember that day. I remember that promise. Nothing is impossible for God. Nothing. Whenever you face impossible situations, just remember, God can be trusted. He always does what he promised. I don't know what your struggles are today. Maybe you're having marital problems. Maybe you're having financial problems. Maybe you feel lonely. Maybe you're persecuted. Maybe you even fear the future. All I know that it doesn't get much harder than having to watch your son being tortured and murdered as an innocent man. Just remember, God is faithful. Some ask, would I do this again? Oh, whatever my Lord asks, I would do. I mean, it's the only way, really, to truly know joy and peace. See, I find that that's the problem in your day. You see, in your day, people are so wrapped up in their own lives, in their own problems, trying to fix everything themselves. They've lost the willingness to let God be in charge. I think that's a big mistake. You see, God calls us to an all or nothing kind of faith. You need to either truly, truly trust him, or you have never really trusted him at all. You can't see yourself as king of your life and then proclaim him king at the same time. Back in Nazareth, I faced that choice. Was I going to truly trust him, or was I going to turn away from him? I think I made the right choice. And I pray that you do too.